would like to be considered for public comment, there are registration sheets on the back table. They're the same sheets we use for school board meetings. They say school board, but it's really for the committee meeting. So we do have over 20 registered written comments. And committee members, comments. But if anybody would like to register to speak, please do that now and bring the sheets up here. Thank you. Hey, Jess, would you mind moving up to your red chair? Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Because I see Kelly Pepper's here.
Committee members, could you please try your microphones? Just pull a microphone here, and then there's a button on the microphone you should be able to press. And when it turns blue, it should activate. You can go ahead and give it a shot. Susan, you're good. Susan, Martin, good. Here. Good. Good. Thank you. You can turn them off unless you're going to speak. Mrs. Tillman, you're good? Microphone's good?
I think so. Yeah.
Perfect. And you can adjust it how it reads like. It'll pick up well.
That means you live in the
Looks like we're out of chairs. There are 2 seats right up here in front. There are some more chairs in back. If anybody would like to take a chair, you could probably squeeze in one more row next to the wall. Otherwise, it is standing room only. You're welcome to come in and fill the sides of the standing room. If you'd like a chair, there are some chairs in the corner, or there's 2 seats right up front here. Okay, welcome everyone. We will go ahead and get started. My name is Joe Zadowski. I'm the district administrator here in the school district of the Menomonie area. I would like to thank everyone for being here today. It's great to see this much interest in our school district. I will say that this is a bit of a unique process for us. This is my 9th year in the school district, and I don't think we've had any of these reconsideration meetings in the first 9 years. This is something that's becoming relatively common. I don't know if common is the right word, but not uncommon, I should say, when you look at news reports from across the country, and appreciate the process that we have. The school board did anticipate the possibility of this happening. Last spring, the school board did review the district's policies for reconsideration of learning materials. So the school board had very good insight in reviewing those policies and making sure we had things ready to go. With that being said, we haven't done this in a decade, so it may be a little clunky. I see we have committee members who were all appointed last spring, but this is their first meeting as committee members, and most of you probably haven't sat at a board table with a full boardroom before. It's not the most comfortable feeling. But folks, thank you for being here, and I'm sure this will be a real nice audience and a good opportunity for us to go through this. I do also want to point out, however, this is not a meeting of the district electors. Okay, this is not meant to be a public meeting where there's a lot of public discourse and public voting and those types of things. This is a committee meeting. This is a meeting of the committee right here, and Mrs. Pillman, who has been invited to present to the committee. This is a meeting of the committee held in public. Okay, it's not a public meeting to determine this. This is a committee meeting held in public, and that's a big distinction there. So we do ask that you allow the committee to conduct their business. Please refrain from cheers and applause and things like that. If it gets to that point, we're going to have to do something about it, and let's just not even go down that road. I'm sure we can have a very civil discourse and get to the bottom of this today. Okay, the agenda, there were agendas at the door. Hopefully there's enough. This is quite the turnout, which is great. But we already called the meeting to order. Next is to have a roll call and introduction of committee members. I already said I'm Joe Zadowski, the district administrator. I am not a voting member of this committee. I am simply here to facilitate this meeting. The voting members of the committee are here at the table. So when I call your name, if you could please indicate your attendance by saying here into the microphone. The committee by board policy is to be made up of a building administrator, a central office administrator, an elementary school teacher, secondary school teacher, the district library and media coordinator, and 4 district residents. Representing building administrators in the school district is Susan Mopson. Here. Great. Central office administrator, Brian Seguin. Here. And I should point out, Susan is the high school assistant principal. Brian is the assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction. Next, we have an elementary teacher, Erin Kennedy. Here. And Erin is a teacher of Wakanda Elementary School. Secondary teacher is Jennifer Barron. Here. And Mrs. Barron is an English teacher at the high school. Our district library media coordinator, Kimberly Navarro. Here. Thank you for joining us, Kim. And district residents, Jolene Stark. Here. Thank you, Jolene. Mark Fisherfeld. Here. Emily Hines. Here. And Nicole Schmidt. Here. And again, committee members, thank you so much. I'm sure when you said yes last spring, you did not envision what you're looking at right now. Okay, so we have gotten through B, roll call and introduction of committee members. Next is just a review of the reconsideration process. And committee members at your table, and you've been sent all this stuff, but I think it's worth going through this a little bit. There's really 2 items that we need to call our attention to tonight in terms of the process. First of all is School Board Policy 361, and that policy is for educational materials selection and evaluation. So the school board, as the governing body of the district, is legally responsible for all educational materials in the district. As a policymaking body, the board delegates the responsibility for the selection of educational materials to the professionally trained personnel employed by the district and provides opportunities for parent and community input. Professionally trained personnel includes the educators and administrators licensed by the Department of Public Instruction with supervised studies in curriculum and instruction. Now, when we talk about tonight, we're talking about library materials. And in the policy, it says the library media program provides students and teachers access to information in a variety of formats for instructional and leisure purposes. The centers must provide a wide range of materials on all levels of difficulty with diverse appeal representing different points of view. Specific objectives are to provide materials that will enrich and support the curriculum, taking into consideration the varied interest, abilities, and maturity levels of the students served. Provide materials that will stimulate growth in factual knowledge, literary appreciation, aesthetic values, and ethical standards. Provide materials on opposing sides of controversial issues so that students under guidance may develop the practice of critical analysis. And provide materials representative of the many religious, ethnic, and cultural groups and their contributions to our American heritage. Now, there is a process for the for reconsideration and for the ability to raise an objection to the instructional materials used in the district. And that is outlined in Rule 361, and that's why we're here tonight. Mrs. Josie Pillman has submitted to the school district 2 requests for reconsideration. One, for the book It Feels Good to Be Yourself by Teresa Thorne, and secondly, the book Love Makes a Family by Sophie Peter. And both those items have been received, and committee members have been provided those outlines. So what we have next is that the committee members will hear from Mrs. Pillman, and then at that point, the committee members can decide whether or not you want to hear public comment. Now, there has been over 20 written public comments shared with committee members. Some were emailed directly, some were shared from the district, through the district process, through committee members. But regardless, all written communications received before noon today have been shared. After that, the committee will deliberate and discuss what the different options are. At that point, the committee can decide to retain the material under reconsideration for general student use, make it available on limited basis for specific classroom use only, available at a specific level, elementary, middle, or high school, or make the material under consideration no longer available in the district for general student use. Any questions about the process at all from committee members? I know that was a lot. As we go through this, if you have a process question, please just stop, ask, and we can figure it out together. Okay, if there are no process questions, I will then turn it over to Mrs. Josie Pillman. And Mrs. Pillman, you can present your request for reconsideration to this committee.
I think I do have one question. Will that be decided right here and now what's going to happen with the books? Or is there a deliberation time?
It would not have to necessarily happen here and now. To me, that would be the goal.
Okay.
But depending on the committee's desires, whether or not additional research or investigation would need to take place, it is possible that a decision would not happen tonight, but I think the goal of everyone would be to walk out of here with a decision.
Because I would like to present the hard copy of what I'm going to say after I speak, and so they could have it in their hands, you know, if they wanted to when they're reconsidering. I don't want to do it right now, but I would do it afterwards, if that's okay.
That would be fine. You know, I did offer you the opportunity to provide background for all the committee members. I did not receive any background from you, so the committee members did not. However, we will accept it at your leisure, at your pleasure, I should say.
Thank you. I would like to do that then after I speak, after I present. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the Reconsideration Committee and Dr. Zajdowski, thank you for giving me the opportunity to defend the removal of 2 books from the SDMA library system. It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity by Teresa Thorne, and Love Makes a Family by Sophie Beer. Let's first talk a little bit about education. Educators are given the weighty responsibility of teaching our children truth. That is, truth in math, i.e. 1 + 1 = 2. Truth in reading and spelling and history and science. It is absolutely essential that young scholars be taught the truth in every area. If 1 + 1 = 2 today and 3 tomorrow, truth is being trampled in the halls of learning. The world of our children will be rocked with confusion. Trust is broken. This book is filled with myths and lies. Let me share a few. Ruthie is a transgender girl. That means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she grew a little older, old enough to tell everyone that she's actually a girl. But not everyone feels like either a boy or a girl. This is Ruthie's friend Alex. Alex is both a boy and a girl. JJ is neither a boy nor a girl. See, when you were born, you couldn't tell people who you were or how you felt. They looked at you and made a guess. Maybe they got it right, maybe they got it wrong. What a baby's body looks like when they're born can be a clue to what the baby's gender will be, but not always. Your feelings about your gender are real. Listen to your heart. This book is filled, that's unquote now. This book is filled with myths and lies. Feelings do not inform us of our sex. Biology does. You educators know that young children are made to trust the adults in their lives to tell them the truth about this world. Children are impressionable. When trusted teachers put lies into the minds of children, they just might believe them. If they don't flat out believe them, they may begin to question what they have known to be true. So these children are being groomed to doubt what their parents and their church is telling them outside of school. They are being conditioned to believe a lie. You could call them seeds of wrong thinking. As the child begins to mature, those seeds of wrong thinking also begin to sprout and grow. Middle school children go through an age of questioning. These seeds of lies continue to grow and mature and worm their way more and more into the thinking of these now half-grown children. Doubts and fears arise. Now entering the high school, those myths can lead down a very dark pathway, possibly leading to transitioning, mutilation, permanent sterility, depression, mental illness, and even suicide. Those difficulties did not come out of nowhere. Remember, children are very impressionable. I'm quoting now from the school district. The SDMA is dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens, unquote. That has to start by teaching our very young children that 1 + 1 is indeed 2. It was 2 yesterday, it is 2 today, and it will be tomorrow. You are a sex at birth, and that does not change, ever. The second book that I brought for you to consider is Love Makes a Family. This book is designed to teach young children who cannot yet read. You can see it's a board book. The very cover shows 4 families. 2 dads and a child, 2 moms and a child, a single mom with a child, and a fully intact mom and dad black family. In the case of the 2 dads and a child, that so-called family is built on lust, not love. As is the 2 moms with a child. Lust, not love. The single mom is sad, as she, for whatever reason, needs to raise her child without the father figure. The black family is normal. A 5-year-old does not have the discernment to recognize the subtle message of these pictures. He does not have the discernment to know what is a real family and what is a so-called family built on lust. Note the rainbows scattered around. That is also a symbol that normalizes the LGBTQ crowd. The symbol of the rainbow is stolen from the Bible. The rainbow is not about normalizing so-called homosexual marriages. The rainbow was put into the sky by the Lord God as a promise that he would never again send a flood upon the earth to wipe out evil human beings. God the Creator instituted a family to be one man and one woman and the offspring from that union. That is normal and that is true. This book lies. Both books are full of dangerous lies. They are being used to harm our children. I'm going to quote now from an article by Carl Trueman. I have permission to quote this. This was written in this magazine, August 27th. Quote, an idea that now grips the popular imagination, and I add many of our teachers believe, sex is not primarily something we do, it is something we are. Take, for example, the terms lesbian, gay, bisexual, and straight. Today they are intuitively meaningful to us. Yet in conceding that point, we concede that desire, not action, defines sex, which defines us. To say, I am straight, is to make an identity claim. But it is not to assert that I have ever had a sexual encounter with someone else. It is a statement of felt desire, not action. Technology panders to the myths that fallen human beings want to believe about themselves. First, that we are free, answerable to no one, and masters of our own destinies. Second, that human nature involves no accountability to some set of objective moral standards. I'm going to continue. This quote was by the article called The Twisted Self. We do live in a strange new world. The good news, it is built on a myth. We are born free, but radically dependent on others and subject to nature and her God. The bad news, we can do a lot of damage trying to deny those basic and obvious truths. Unquote. I agree with this statement. We can do a lot of damage by denying obvious truth. And who are we damaging? Our precious children. I would like to mention a wonderful replacement for the gender identity book. That would be the book Just Ducky by Barbara Anderson. The foreword says, growing up can be difficult and confusing. Wise old duck has a lot of common sense and teaches little ducky an important truth. Contentment is found in self-acceptance. Here are a few quotes from this book. On a small farm lived a family of ducks. Daddy duck, mommy duck, and 5 ducklings. One little duckling was confused. He thought he was a rooster. One day he found the farmer's red work glove and put it on his head. See, I'm a rooster, just like Rooster Riley. But the other barnyard animals just laughed at him. You're not a rooster, they said. That glove looks silly on your head. Little Ducky was sad. He was so sure he was a rooster. He even started practicing how to crow. However, it sounded more like quack-a-doodle-doo. Wise old duck said, let me help you understand who you are. Look at your feet, your webbed feet. Your feet are not like a rooster's feet. Yes, but I don't feel like a duck. I feel like a rooster, replied little ducky. Remember, who you are isn't based on your feelings, explained wise old duck. Feelings change. What doesn't change is the way you were made. Now look at your bill, she continued. You have a nice bill, not a beak like a rooster. That wonderful bill was made so you could catch small fish and insects. Ducks were made to do things that roosters cannot do. He realized that wise old duck was right. Being a rooster wasn't all it was quacked up to be. You mean I was made just the way I am for a reason? Yes. No mistakes, quacked wise old duck. This book expresses truth, not lies. It helps a young child know the truth about himself and his world. It does not give any credence to feelings as a basis for truth about ourselves. It gives high respect and regard for the older, wiser duck. This is a book that should get past the gatekeepers of our libraries. Another book I have is the New England Primer. This was published in 1777. The foreword reads, "The New England Primer, introduced in Boston in 1690 by Benjamin Harris, was the first textbook printed in America. For a century after its introduction, it was the beginning textbook for students. And until well into the 20th century, there was a 1930 edition, it continued to be a principal text in all types of American schools, public, private, semi-private, home, dame, parochial, etc. The founders, as well as millions of other Americans, learned to read from the New England Primer and the Bible." Take a listen to some rhymes for learning your letters. A. In Adam's fall, we sinned all. B. Heaven to find, the Bible mind. C. Christ crucified, for sinners died. D. The deluge drowned the earth around. E. Elijah hid by ravens fed, and so on. It might surprise you the type of books our founding fathers learned from. Some we may not even allow past our gatekeepers and into the library today at Knapp Elementary. I'm realizing how many more dangerous books there just might be hidden on the shelves of Knapp Elementary. So in conclusion, I want to implore you to vote wisely when you decide what to do with these two books. And I would say, please, remove both books from the library, all the libraries. Thank you.
Very, very good, Mrs. Tillman. Thank you for your testimony, and thank you everyone for being so respectful during that time period. Okay, next up, after we've had the presentation by the complainant, next up would be to decide what to do with public comment. Now, committee members, you have received, I believe it was 25, if I counted correctly, 25 public comments, and I think what would potentially be appropriate would be for the committee to accept those into the record. Those comments were from Joyce Euler, Courtney Ernst, Stephanie May, Susan Lindahl, Jeff Richter, Krista Fisher, Cars Collins, Tim Dolan, Danny Gisling, Jessica Graham, Alex Hall, Elena Marshall, Hannah Lammer, Cody and Amanda Raymer, Warren and Marion Lang, Colton Shinnicky, sorry Colton. People butcher my name all the time, but it doesn't make it right, sorry. Chelsea Lovejoy, Laurel and Robert Freyer, Bobby and Art Brandt, a number of members of Menomonie Cares, Bob Salt, Leslie Norris, Jennifer Luciani, Wendy Slavic, Kathleen McFerrin, and then also received from Kat Brogan. Would any committee member like to make a motion to enter those into the record?
So moved, Hines.
Okay, Emily Hines. Second by Jolene Sturk. Any discussion? Any objection? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, those items have been entered into the record.
Dr. Sadowski, may I pass these around, just start from there?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. You can come up and hand them out, whatever you'd like. Thank you, Joseph. And we can add Mrs. Pillman's comments to the record as well. They've already been entered through her presentation. We have received eight requests to provide public comment to the committee. And it's, the policy is it's really up to the committee to determine whether or not you would like to have that happen. I did have noted that at least a few of these also came in as written public comment. Typically, the school board does allow for public comment at school board meetings. Typically, the school board allows for 3 minutes for public comment per speaker, but it's really whatever the committee's desire would be. Any committee members would like to provide a suggestion of what to do?
My suggestion would be for public comment for those that did not submit written, would be simply for us to adopt the board procedure as far as public comment and follow those guidelines since they're already established.
Can't hear you.
Sorry. My suggestion to the committee would be that we allow for public comment by adopting the existing rules that the school board has for handling public comments, the 3-minute period of time.
Okay, so is that a motion, Brian?
Yes, I would make it as.
So the motion on the table is to allow for public comment by adopting the rules for school board meetings, which allows for 3 minutes per speaker. Is there a second to that motion? All right, second by Mark Winterfeld. So we have a motion by Brian Seguin, second by Mark. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that? Okay, then we'll start with public comments, and we'll take them in the order received. First would be Hannah Lammer. Hannah, if you could please come to the middle there and stand up. Thank you, Josie. You've done this before. Is the microphone on?
Maybe easier to, oh, you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Please just stand.
Sure, will do.
And yeah, if you could just introduce yourself, and then I'll start the timer once you begin your speech.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for seeing me today. My name is Hannah Lammer, and I live in Menomonie. I was raised in Menomonie, graduated from Menomonie School. Mrs. Guerin was my English teacher. And now I work at UW Stout with diverse and marginalized students. I had a lengthier letter, but I'm going to kind of stick to one particular section that really stuck out to me in response to the complaint. I was really distraught to learn of the attempt to remove these 2 books from the district libraries. I believe these efforts are at their core a blatant attack on the rights and humanity of LGBTQIA people through children's books. As a school district that purports to value and provide a culturally relevant curriculum, we should not be letting bigoted and unfounded claims about LGBTQIA identities dictate access for the entire school district. In a recent school board meeting, Mrs. Pillman referenced the high level of suicidality in transgender youth as a reason not to offer these books. The fact that she mentioned this, but she didn't provide any context about this statistic. You can look it up, and there's numerous studies. I found one recently in 2021, which I also submitted, found that young people who are allowed to transition, socially transition, that is, adopt names, pronouns, gender expression, haircuts, or clothes of their preferred gender, have better mental health outcomes than those who are not allowed to transition. They found that the most harmful element to being transgender is the experiences of harassment based on their gender identity. This is just one of numerous studies documenting this. When we ban books that explain and validate and celebrate difference, we are contributing to stigma and harassment that leads to negative mental health outcomes and suicide. So if we want to be on that side, go ahead and ban those books. Safe and affirming social environments are the key to reducing those negative health outcomes, and offering books like this allows students to feel seen, valued, and understood. I don't support banning these books, and I'm really honestly horrified that this is even up for debate. It's exhausting to constantly defend the right of people to simply exist. The fact that the humanity is up for debate, whether their story should be told, is shameful. If you take the books out of our school district, you are sending a direct message to these students that their rights as learners and their physical safety come secondary to one person's view of morality. You're disregarding young people's ability to see themselves reflected in the stories they read, and you're denying the chance for other young people to build empathy for experiences that are different than their own. Then you'd be acting in also in direct opposition to your own mission statement and values. This is your call to keep these stories accessible. Thank you for your time.
Okay, very good, thank you. Next, I have Danny Gissin. Danny, did I say that right?
Oh, yes.
Gissin, and then after Danny, we'll have Colton. Danny, go ahead.
That sounds good. Hello, thank you, and it's a privilege I'm able to speak to you. I'm Danny Gissing. I live on 5th Street right across from the high school. And when I found out about these books might be reconsidered to be banned, I was flabbergasted because representation really matters. All students want to know and see themselves. And so it also get privileged to, when they get those words, when they see, oh, that's me. And so sometimes we see this in social work, and where students don't realize they're being abused until they see representation. I'm a person who's deaf. I did not see a single person represented in posters or books in my school until my senior year in high school. And Wisconsin School for the Deaf is in my hometown. So that is what blew my mind, that representation needs to be mattered. So I'm a lifelong learner, educator, so I want these books to not be banned. So I sent a letter, and one of the things that I want to leave off is that if we do the myths and lies, then books of booksellers are going to be banned. So if we use a book about the duck, ducks don't talk, so they need to be banned. That's the lie. So I thank you, and I hope you reconsider this book in the library.
Okay, thank you very much. So next up is Colton, and after Colton is Tina Lee.
Thank you for giving me the time and the chance to speak. So my name is Colton Sheneke. My pronouns are they, them. I am an alumni of UW Scout several times over, as well as a PhD student at Antioch University, as well as a mental health therapist in town who works especially with trans youth. And also just an actual living trans person, which for some people in the room it sounds like Santa Claus is here, because we do exist actually. First off, I would really like to caution the discussion around truth when we're clearly ignoring the scientific process, where the foundation of the scientific process is that we have evidence, we find new information, and we change our theory based on the new evidence that was presented. That's literally how this works. If it wasn't, we would still have our medicine based on the 4 humors. So that's science for you. I submitted a letter that also just laid about a bunch of stuff out about how all of this is scientifically not accurate, and y'all can refer to that because it's in the record. And plus 2, if I just go into that, there's people here who will listen to me and won't listen to me, so that's fine. One thing that was conveniently ignored when reading through the book was the page immediately after talking about Ruthie, which I'll read. This is Ruthie's brother, Xavier. Xavier is a cisgender boy. That means when Xavier was born, everyone thought he was a boy, and as he grew older, it turned out everyone was right. He is a boy. Removing these books is just as harmful to cisgender kids as it is to trans kids, because what these books tell you is that transgender or cisgender, you are okay as you are. I want you to just think for a second, in your own gender identity, whatever that may be, those moments where you just felt like, this is great, this is me. I don't know if it was a great outfit you had, or supporting your family or whatever, just those great moments. You should be able to be okay with who you are because it makes you happy, not because someone says that's what you should be. This book is important, and removing it hurts everyone.
Very good, thank you. Next up is Tina Lee, and after Tina would be Gilda, I believe. Gilda Board. Yes? Okay, great. Thanks, Tina. Well, go ahead.
So hi, I'm Tina Lee. I am both a professor of anthropology, which means that my field of study is human nature and what is it. And my specialty within that larger field is gender, family, and sexuality. I'm also a parent of 2 children in the district. One who identifies as partly LGBTQ in one way, I won't explain how, and another one who's in one of the elementary schools. So as an anthropologist who studies these things and understands human nature in a very, very deep way and teaches about it at the college level, I'm here to tell you that homosexual families are not the only way that families have existed throughout human history, in other cultures, and even in our own society. I'm also here to tell you that around 2% of children are born every single year, and it is not clear whether they are clearly a boy or a girl in terms of their biological, physical bodies. Same-sex marriages occur across cultures. multiple gender categories occur across cultures. Our society has until very recently enforced heterosexuality, enforced a gender binary in ways that are sometimes violent. But currently today, students who identify as transgender live in our district, learn in our district. Diverse sets of families exist in our district, live in our district. And what we know is that having books that can discuss these things in a very matter-of-fact way, including explaining that there are folks who are born a certain gender, feel like they're always that gender, really does express truth about who is in our district. We know that youth who are not accepted, they are the ones with the higher mental health challenges and with higher rates of suicide. Suicide was already mentioned, but I'll just mention one study in 2018. About half of transgender youth, those who are assigned female and identify currently as male, have committed or attempted suicide. 42% of non-binary youth, students who don't feel like they're one or the other, and about 30% of youth who are assigned male at birth and identify as female have attempted a suicide attempt. And we know from all of these studies that what causes the suicide attempts, what causes the mental health issues, what causes the substance abuse issues is not the questioning. It's the fact that they're not accepted as normal, and we know that they are normal. I'm here to tell you as a student of humanity, they are absolutely normal. Public schools have a responsibility to educate all children, including children who come from diverse families, children who feel differently about their identity, and we know that a sense of belonging and safety at school is necessary for learning and necessary to keep children healthy. Books that simply acknowledge, just simply acknowledge, diverse family forms and gender identities further the goals of allowing a space where students are accepted, where they feel safe, and where they can learn. These things need to be on bookshelves because they're going to help children understand. Thank you.
How the heck do you turn this off? Yeah. Need the board president here. I don't usually do the timer. Okay. Tina, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so next we have Gilda, and then on deck will be Jessica Graham. Gilda Board, did I say that correctly?
It's Gelda Board.
Gelda, I apologize.
Hi, I live in Menomonie. I'm also a historian, and I specialize in the Puritan period and colonial history. And when the 1690s and up until 1750, the law didn't change. Witchcraft, we were still hanging women for witchcraft, and that wasn't changed till the 1750s when one of the books that's introduced is being discussed. And if we're going to discuss founding fathers, Baron von Steuben, who got our troops together, and there's an argument that we wouldn't have the same country without him, lived with two men and, you know, in a very different manner than we see now. And George Washington trusted him, and so did all of our other founding fathers to defend and create a new country. So I just wanted to address that if we're going to discuss this, we need to discuss it on a bigger scale. But as a parent of a school-aged child and a resident of Menomonie, it came to my attention that two books were being challenged for removal from the district libraries. The two in question were children's books regarding LGBTQ families and gender expression or identity. Our family read them together to better understand them. Stories like these have the ability to not only empower but to validate those that feel different or like they do not belong. Representation matters a great deal. Children and teenagers that do not see themselves represented may question their worth or belonging. Families are varied and have a very different makeups. Not all are traditional. Some have two moms, two dads, a single mom, a single dad, or multi-generations in one household that might include a different than traditional makeup. Reading and learning about diverse gender and LGBTQ stories helps to promote tolerance, understanding, and acceptance. This is vitally important to help build a better, more compassionate, and more tolerant society. According to the CDC, 9 out of 10 LGBTQ students experience bullying, teasing, and sometimes violence. 1 out of 3 LGBTQ youth attempt suicide or have suicidal thoughts. LGBTQ students are 140 times more likely to miss school than heterosexual students because they are concerned about their safety. So why are these books being questioned? Why are they potentially being banned? Is it a personal opinion, values, or belief? Is it a religious belief? The First Amendment guarantees freedom of religion, and if your religious beliefs are leading to banning the suppression of information and stories, you are potentially violating and oppressing the religious freedom of another. Public officials cannot make decisions based upon religious beliefs, ideology, or viewpoints. Is it because there is fear that the stories are sexual in nature? Many children learn about Virgin Mary and Immaculate Conception from a very young age, but they cannot learn about different gender identities or non-traditional experiences. Many children's books contain a traditional mother and father that are expressing love and intimacy with their children and family. Why is this an issue in a storybook where there are fathers, two mothers, or doing something similar? How does this deny and oppress expressions of intimacy and love based upon different family makeup or gender identity? If you are demanding the removal and banning of these books, ask yourself why. Do you yourself have a limited knowledge of the world around you? Are you fearful of others? Do you think that some ideas, identities, and expressions have more value than others? When you ban or remove a book, you are making a decision that tells someone they are not worthy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, next we have Jessica Graham, and on deck, Michelle Reed. Yeah.
Stay here.
Yeah, you're right there. Go ahead, Jess.
So I submitted a statement in writing previously, but I'd just like to go back and highlight 2 points from that, if that's all right. In the National School Library Standards for Learners, School Librarians, and School Libraries, it states, the American Library Association stringently and unequivocally maintains that libraries and librarians have an obligation to resist efforts that systematically exclude materials dealing with any subject matter, including sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation. Librarians have a professional obligation to ensure that all library users have free and equal access to the entire range of library services, materials, and programs. But in addition, I'd like to point out that the library also recognizes that what is right for one family might not be right for another family. And we are more than willing to make a note on any student's account if a parent doesn't want them to check out a specific subject matter or a specific book title. We are more than happy to accommodate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. And I don't think you introduced yourself, but Ms. Graham is one of the library media specialists in the school district. I know there's other titles, but thank you for being here. Okay. So Michelle Reed is up, and Carol Rapella. Where's Mrs. Rapella?
Right here.
Good to see you. You're next.
My name is Michelle Reed. I'm born and raised in Menomonie. Raising my child in Menomonie. He's been in the district since 4K. He's now in high school. And I'm here speaking as a mother, as an ally of LGBTQ students and their families, and as an author. And everyone who's come before me has already spoken beautifully about how horrifying it is that we're even here and that we're even considering banning books. That's not the sign of a healthy democracy to ban books. And punching down at the most vulnerable children and their families is not the sign of a healthy school district. But I'm here to speak about the law and what it means, what the district already has in place. So my statement is I strongly urge you to keep It Feels Good to Be Yourself and Love Makes a Family on the shelves in the libraries of the Menomonie schools, and to uphold the freedom to read for all students in our community. The Supreme Court has ruled that the right of all children to read books free of viewpoint discrimination is guaranteed by the First Amendment. Not everyone in our community shares the views of those opposed to these sweet, inclusive books, and the challengers have no right to impose their views on others or demand that the educational program reflect their personal preferences. They may not infringe upon the rights of others to read the books or tell other parents what their child may read. I would urge you to continue to follow the district policies already in place. Board of Education Policy 110, Philosophy of Education, states the district will, quote, develop in students appreciation and respect for the dignity and worth of others, and expand and advance the humane dimensions of students, especially by helping them to identify and cultivate their own morals and ethical values and attitudes. Policy 411.2 says the school district of the Menomonie area's purpose is to foster inclusive and welcoming learning environments that are free from discrimination, harassment, and bullying regardless of sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, including transgender and gender nonconforming students, and to create safe and supportive learning and working environments. Also, Policy 113, non-discrimination in district programs, activities, and operations says, quote, the district requires and will enforce non-discrimination in a manner that is consistent with applicable constitutional provisions and with the rights and obligations that are established under all applicable state and federal civil rights laws. In 1982, Island Tree School District v. Pico, the Supreme Court ruled, quote, local school boards may not remove books from school library shelves simply because they dislike the ideas contained in those books and seek by their removal to prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion. And that's what we're here, because of someone's opinion. The Free Exercise Clause of the Constitution does not allow schools to remove books based on religious objectives. So I'm here, and to all of the LGBTQ kids, you matter, and I love you. So.
All right, thank you very much. Next we have Carol Rapella and then Dan Paulson. Mrs. Rapella, it's great to see you back in the district.
It's great to be here, thank you. My name is Carol Rapella and I live here in Menomonie. I have 2 children, a son who's a junior at MHS and a daughter who graduated from Menomonie High School 6 years ago. Up until my very recent retirement, I taught English at Menomonie High School. As a parent and an educator, I am deeply opposed to removing these books from the school library. Both books have received excellent reviews in professional journals and are recommended for elementary age students. More importantly, these books reflect and respect the diversity of our schools and community. Representation in literature is crucial for children. My husband died when my children were very young, and I raised them as a single parent. It was important for my children to see characters in literature who were also being raised by just one parent. For my son, who was adopted from Guatemala, it was also important to see people of color featured in stories and textbooks. This is certainly true for our LGBTQ families and LGBTQ students as well. They deserve representation and respect, despite the religious beliefs of some. In our public schools, educational decisions should not be based on religion. Please vote to retain these books. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Mrs. Rapella. And last, Dan Paulson.
I'm Dan Paulson, and I'm writing from the perspective of one who looks at what is curriculum. Why is curriculum so constructed, and what is the impact of curriculum? Having obtained a terminal degree and 40 years of study of curriculum and instruction, I should be able to provide some insight into the issue. It is important to understand what we are teaching and why. This includes not only the direct lessons taught to students in classrooms, but also the hidden curriculum of undeclared knowledge and information that students learn in schools. It also includes the instructional materials presented to students as well as made available to students in classrooms and libraries. It is also important to provide information that is accurate and understandable for students in school. My analysis of literature in question revealed that they do not contain any written or graphic content that is considered obscene or vulgar by general community standards. The material does not contain information that is cognitively abstract, requiring knowledge that is beyond simple observation or beyond concrete thinking abilities. The concepts discussed are those that most children understand before entering pre-kindergarten programs. And I have experience working with 4-year-old children in such programs. Also, they are exposed to gender variations even on the streets of Menomonie as well as in the media. Understanding the development of gender identity is complex with competing theories and has changed over the last 40 years. Gender is associated with sex of an individual, but is not biologically determined by X and Y chromosome inheritance. Rather, is a uniquely human construct that is part of identity and expression of that identity. Gender is something that develops over time and is socially, culturally influenced. There are also individuals who are born intersex, possessing different combinations and numbers of chromosomes, for example, X, XXX, XXY, and XYY. Theorists such as Kohlberg postulated that 3 stages of gender identity develop. Stage 1, gender identification. By age 2, they may become conscious of the differences between boys and girls. Stage 2, gender stability. By age 5, they understand their gender roles. In stage 3, gender constancy. By 6 or 7, they understand sex is permanent across situations. Kohlberg describes gender identity development but does not explain how children form gender identities. His work has been criticized for gender bias, ignoring the feelings and cultural influences. The fact is that the vast majority of individuals' gender identity is stable by the time they are in school.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Dan. And were there any other forms filled out at this point? I think we got everybody. Okay, if you could click off that microphone, please, Mrs. Pillman, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, again, for providing your input, comments, and thank you also for being such a great audience, respectful to each other. I do think that's a terrific sign for our school district, and I think we can all be proud of that, so great job. Okay, committee, now it's kind of your turn. You've had a chance, about an hour here, to think about things, hear a lot of information. And at this point, committee members, now would be a great opportunity for you to ask any questions you might have, whether they be questions directed to me or the district or the librarian. You could ask Mrs. Pillman any questions that you have. But ultimately, committee members, what we would like at some point is for someone to make a motion, and by majority vote of the members present tonight, the Reconsideration Committee will decide to do one of 4 things. Retain the material under reconsideration for general student use, make it available on limited basis for specific classroom use, make it available at a specific level, elementary, middle, or high school, or make the material under consideration no longer available in the district for general student use. So, committee members, anybody want to ask a question or share a thought?
My thought is to make the motion that you keep it in the school library under the first provision.
Okay, so Jolene, you're making a motion to retain the material under reconsideration for general student use.
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Anything? So you want to vote? Okay. Let's do a roll call on this one. Kim? So, yeah, yes or no, aye, whatever. Okay, Nicole?
Yes.
Jenny?
Yes.
Emily?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Jolene?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. This committee recommends to the school board that these materials remain in general student use. Mrs. Pillman, thank you again for submitting your request for consideration. At this point, I would say this matter is now closed for this committee. And actually, could I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Brian, second by Nicole. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Sadowski, may I ask, it says if a board appeal is requested by the petitioner?
Why don't you come up and we'll talk? Thank you.
Thanks.